For 34 years, a man sat in a French dungeon. His face was hidden behind a mask of iron and velvet. Guards were forbidden to speak to him. If anyone saw his face, they would be executed immediately. King Louis XIV himself ordered this prisoner erased from history. No name, no trial, no explanation. When he finally died in 1703, his cell was stripped bare, the walls scraped, and every trace of his existence destroyed. Why? What secret was so dangerous that an entire kingdom worked to bury it? Hidden identity, royal secret. Historians have debated this mystery for over 300 years. Some say he was the king's twin brother. Others claim he was the real father of Louis XIV. A few believe he held secrets that could have toppled the French monarchy itself. Tonight, we dig through centuries of conspiracy, royal scandal, and deliberate deception to uncover the truth behind history's most mysterious prisoner. As Voltaire himself wrote, "I know no facts more curious or better authenticated. The evidence is scattered. The theories are wild. But somewhere in the shadows of the Bastille lies an answer that still haunts us." The mysterious arrest. The year was 1669. A man was arrested in the French town of Dunkirk and taken to the fortress of Pignerol in the Alps. His name, according to prison records, was Eustache Dodger, but that name meant nothing. It appeared nowhere else in French history. No birth record, no family, no crime, just a ghost who materialized into chains. The arrest order came directly from the king's war minister, the Marquis de Louvois. His instructions were chillingly specific. The prisoner must be kept in isolation. He must never be allowed to speak to anyone about anything other than his basic needs. If he tried to communicate anything else, he was to be killed. You must never, under any pretense whatsoever, listen to what he may wish to say. The jailer assigned to this mysterious prisoner was Bénin d'Auvergne de Saint-Mars. He would guard this man for the next 34 years, transferring with him from prison to prison, always maintaining the same obsessive secrecy. Forbidden words, death sentence. What crime demands eternal silence? What knowledge is worth dying to conceal? The answer lies not in what Dodger did, but in who he really was. The Velvet Prison. Here is what made this prisoner different from every other soul rotting in French dungeons. He was treated like royalty. While other prisoners suffered in filth, this masked man received fine furniture, expensive clothes, and meals prepared by personal servants. He was allowed books, musical instruments, and regular visits from a priest. Saint Mars guarded him with an almost religious devotion. When the warden was transferred to new prisons, he took his mysterious charge with him: Pignerol, Exils, Sainte Marguerite. Finally, the Bastille in 1698. Luxury behind iron bars. The famous mask itself evolved over time. Early accounts mention a steel mask. Later descriptions speak of black velvet with metal clasps. Some witnesses claimed it was only worn when others might see the prisoner. As the Duchess of Orleans wrote in her letters, 2 musketeers stood beside him, ready to kill him if he unmasked. This was not punishment, this was preservation. Someone powerful wanted this man alive but invisible. They wanted him comfortable but silent. The mask was not meant to torture him. It was meant to protect a secret. But whose secret, and from whom? Voltaire's revelation. For decades, the prisoner remained a dark rumor whispered in French courts. Then came Voltaire. The great philosopher was himself imprisoned in the Bastille in 1717, just 14 years after the masked man's death. There he heard stories from guards who had seen the prisoner. What he learned changed the mystery forever. Voltaire claimed the prisoner was the older, illegitimate brother of Louis XIV, a twin, born first, hidden away to prevent a succession crisis. The mask, Voltaire insisted, hid a face that was unmistakably royal, identical to the Sun King himself. This prisoner was undoubtedly a brother, an older brother of Louis XIV. He published these claims, and suddenly all of Europe was obsessed. The story spread through salons from Paris to London. Royal twin hidden heir. But was Voltaire telling the truth? Or was he simply crafting a narrative too dramatic to ignore? He was, after all, a master storyteller who despised the monarchy. What better revenge than to suggest the great Sun King had stolen his throne from his own brother? The twin theory captured imaginations, but the evidence was thin, very thin indeed. The twin theory. The twin theory is seductive because it explains everything. Why the mask? To hide a face identical to the king. Why the luxurious treatment? Because he was of royal blood. Why the extreme secrecy? Because revealing him would delegitimize Louis XIV's entire reign. In 1789, during the French Revolution, a skeleton was supposedly found in the Bastille with papers claiming to prove the twin theory. The documents vanished in the chaos. Convenient for the legend, suspicious for historians. Identical faces, stolen crown. Alexander Dumas immortalized this theory in his novel, making the man in the iron mask one of literature's most enduring characters. But here is the problem. Queen Anne of Austria's pregnancy and delivery were witnessed by dozens of courtiers. A twin birth could not have been hidden. Royal births were practically public events, with witnesses legally required to prevent any claims of switched babies. As historian John Noone noted, the idea of concealing a royal twin in 1638 France is historically impossible. The twin theory makes for great fiction, but fiction is exactly what it appears to be. So if not a twin, then who? The valet theory. Modern historians have largely abandoned the romantic theories for something far more mundane, and perhaps far more believable. Eustache Dodger, they argue, was exactly who the records say he was, a valet, a servant, but not just any servant. He served Nicolas Fouquet, the former superintendent of finances who had been imprisoned for embezzlement and ambition. Fouquet knew things, dangerous things, about the king's finances, about secret treaties, about scandals that could embarrass the crown. Fouquet possessed secrets the king could not afford to have revealed. When Fouquet died in 1680, his valet Dodger knew everything his master had known. Every whispered conversation, every hidden document, every royal secret entrusted to a disgraced minister. Servant knew too much. The mask then becomes a practical precaution, not to hide royal features, but to prevent anyone from recognizing a face that might be connected to Fouquet's circle. The luxurious treatment ensures his cooperation. The death threats ensure his silence. Is this the answer? A common servant who simply heard too much? Perhaps. But other theories are even more scandalous. The father theory. There is a theory so explosive that even suggesting it would have meant death in 17th century France. What if Louis XIV was not the son of Louis XIII? The marriage between Louis XIII and Anne of Austria was famously unhappy. The king was cold, possibly homosexual, and spent years avoiding his wife's bed. After 23 years of marriage, Anne suddenly became pregnant. The timing raised eyebrows even then. Whose son was he? Rumors swirled about Cardinal Mazarin, the powerful minister who became Anne's closest confidant after her husband's death. Or perhaps the Duke of Buckingham, who had openly pursued the Queen years earlier. If the man in the iron mask was the real father of Louis XIV, his face would have revealed the truth about the king's illegitimacy. Every feature, every resemblance, would be evidence of the greatest scandal in French history. As the historian Hugh Ross Williamson argued, the prisoner's face was the proof of the king's bastardy. This theory explains the mask perfectly. It explains the death threats. It explains why even after death, every trace of the prisoner was destroyed. But it remains speculation built on scandal and whispers. The truth may be even stranger. The Count theory. In the 1890s, military historian Louis Gendron proposed a candidate that many modern scholars find compelling. Count Ercole Antonio Mattioli, an Italian diplomat who made a fatal mistake. In 1678, Mattioli was negotiating the secret sale of the fortress of Casale to France on behalf of the Duke of Mantua. The deal was worth a fortune. More importantly, it would give France a crucial strategic position in northern Italy. But Mattioli betrayed the negotiations to Spain, France's enemy. Louis XIV was humiliated. The king never forgave betrayal, especially public betrayal. Mattioli was kidnapped by French agents and thrown into Pignerol in 1679. The timing matches. The Italian count was of noble blood, explaining the comfortable treatment, and his face would have been recognized by diplomats across Europe, explaining the mask. Betrayal demands eternal punishment. Some prison records even show a prisoner named Marchiali, a corruption of Mattioli. The evidence is circumstantial but substantial. Did an Italian diplomat pay for one act of treachery with 34 years behind a mask? The timeline suggests yes, but certainty remains elusive. The death mystery. On November 19, 1703, the man in the iron mask died in the Bastille. He was buried the next day under the name Marchiali. His age was listed as around 45. But this creates a problem. If he was Mattioli, he would have been 63. If he was Dodger, the timeline works. If he was anyone connected to Louis XIV's birth in 1638, he would have been in his 60s. The math does not add up. False age, hidden identity. After his death, his cell was searched with obsessive thoroughness. The walls were scraped. The furniture was burned. Every possession was destroyed. Even the metal buttons on his clothes were melted down, as if the very atoms of his existence might reveal his secret. Nothing was left that could serve to identify him. Why such paranoid destruction? A common prisoner's death required no such measures. Only a secret of enormous magnitude would demand this level of erasure. Whatever the masked man knew, whatever his face revealed, it was dangerous enough to destroy even after his final breath. The secret followed him to a grave that has never been found. Modern evidence. In recent decades, historians have gained access to previously sealed French archives. What they found both clarifies and deepens the mystery. Letters between Saint-Mars and Louvois confirm that the prisoner was of relatively low birth. This seems to eliminate the twin theory. References to Dodger as a valet appear multiple times, supporting the servant theory. But the letters also reveal that Saint-Mars exaggerated his prisoner's importance to increase his own status. He may have literally invented the legend of the Iron Mask to make himself seem more important. Saint-Mars was building his own myth as much as hiding a secret.